G'day. As far as sports sponsorships go, there are a few bigger in the world than the one recently announced by Formula One with LVMH. Purportedly $150 million US per year for a decade. But what's involved? LVMH, which stands for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, is the world's largest luxury brand. And look at the brands that they have. Champagnes from Moet, Dom Perignon, Krug, Ruinart, Hennessy cognacs, Belvedere vodka, perfumes and cosmetics from Givenchy, Loewe, Kenzo, Acqua di Parma, Dior and Galan. Then there's fashion, Berluti, Fendi, Givenchy, Marc Jacobs, and of course Louis Vuitton amongst others. Watches and jewellery from Tag Heuer, Hublot, Zenith, Bulgari, Tiffany and others. And then delving deeper, we also find that they own Sephora, DFS, the duty-free giant, and many other retail and luxury brands. 75 different brands in total. And in 2023, their combined turnover was in the order of 86 billion US dollars. So when it comes to spending, say, 100 to 150 million US dollars a year on a sports sponsorship, it's not that big a deal compared to turnover. So how does that compare with other sponsorships in Formula One? If you look at the individual team sponsors, Oracle tips in the most, about $100 million a year to Red Bull, and then Hewlett-Packard, they tip in around $90 million to Ferrari. So LVMH's sponsorship will dwarf both of those. You might have looked at other videos or perhaps posts where people have talked about pretty much the press release. Two great companies combining, synergies, luxury. That's all PR speak. I'm going to go deeper into that, and for a start, let's look at what changes we are likely to see in 2025, because that's when this deal starts. The big one will be the disappearance of Rolex. This is their 12th season as the official timekeeper for Formula One, but they'll be turfed out at the end of this year and most likely replaced by Tag Heuer. Tag's not as highly regarded a brand as Rolex. Certainly most Tag Heuer resellers will be able to sell you a Tag watch. That's not the case with Rolex. You'll be greeted with a nothing for sale today, but put your name down. Let's see how we go. This clock will disappear in the paddock, that's for sure. And while Tag Heuer has been sponsoring Red Bull since 2016, they became the official timekeeper of the sport in 1974. Rolex will disappear from the two races that they sponsored this year, one being the Australian Grand Prix, the other being the Belgian. Certainly if you go now to the Australian Grand Prix website, you'll see no mention of a sponsor's name, but it wouldn't surprise me if that ended up being the Tag Heuer Australian Grand Prix and the Tag Heuer Belgian Grand Prix. The Rolex signage on track, which is prominent at many races, will now disappear. But could they end up sponsoring a team? Well, it's not out of the question, and certainly Tudor, their junior brand, already sponsors an F1 team in AlphaTauri. And that's why you see the likes of their drivers, Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo in the past, and Liam Lawson in the future, wearing their watches, typically this blue-faced watch. But there's nothing confirmed as yet. We'll also see far less of Jackie Stewart. Why? Well, Jackie's a Rolex ambassador, and he does have one of the most amazing Rolex collections. But he often takes tours around the paddock, but with Rolex stepping out as a sponsor, he will no longer be required. And harking back to the money, no one's actually confirmed the amount, but I've read a couple of places 100 million, and in even more places 150 million. Rolex was certainly paying a fraction of that, but only getting a portion of what LVMH will get with this new deal. So what are the other areas that they'll clean up on? Well, almost certainly the podium. At present, Ferrari Trento provides the bubbly that is sprayed around with gay abandon at the end of every race. But they've only been there for a few years. Prior to that, we've had a number of different companies, including Moet and Chandon from 1966 to 99, then again, one single year, 2020, Mum from 2000 to 2015, Chandon from Australia onwards in 2016 and up till the Spanish GP in 2017, then Carbon until the end of 2019, and then Ferrari Trento from 2021 to the end of 24. Now, Ferrari Trento actually gave me one of their bottles for me to spray going back to Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago. Now, Lando normally does this. Right, well, that's the spraying bit. Let me talk a bit more about the podium side of things. At present, what happens is that one of the crew from Formula One goes to the fridge about 10 laps before the end of a race and takes out 3 prepared bottles. Now, they're Jeroboams, which is 3 litres, or some 4 times the size of a normal bottle of champagne, bubbly. One has a camera mounted on it. Katie or Linda will uncork those bottles and then take them out to the podium where one is placed on each of the top 3 steps. And then the track announcer over the PA will shout, "Bolloncini." Now, if you're wondering what the hell that means, I can tell you it means bubbles. Bolloncini being Italian, and that, of course, is the origin of Ferrari Trento. But next year, we will go back to Champagne, because Champagne comes from one region of France, the Champagne region. And whilst we don't have official confirmation as to which Champagne will take over from Ferrari Trento, the smart money is on Moet and Chandon. Yes, it is the most economically priced of all of the LVMH bubblies, but also it has such a rich history with the sport, I think they'd be mad not to go back to it. At some point, we're going to find out if I'm right. And will they continue to customise each bottle as they do now? Yeah, I think there's no doubt that that will be a thing. Of course, that's not the only reason why LVMH will be taking up that sponsorship of the Champagne on the podium. Along with that, they get to sell their product into the corporate hospitality. And over a year, do you have any idea the number of bottles of bubbly they would buy? I can tell you it's more than 60,000. So in terms of sales, that's probably a couple of million US. And does every race feature champagne on the podium? No, there are a couple of races in the Middle East where rosewater is provided instead of champagne or sparkling wine, and that typically does not froth up anything like what a bottle of bubbly does. Other things we're likely to notice with this new sponsorship, perhaps we'll see more of the trophies being presented in these big Louis Vuitton cases. That was the case in Monaco. And while they'll certainly be getting their fair share of signage around the track, that's not the sole reason they do this. They will be looking to do collaborations. Perhaps we'll see Louis Vuitton F1 handbags or Fendi shoes, perhaps an F1 Dior scent. And will they get access to drivers for their money? I doubt it. Normally, if you want a driver to endorse your product, you deal with him direct or the team. So I don't think that would provide them with any special favours. But certainly all of the teams will benefit from this sports sponsorship because some of those sponsors' dollars will go into the prize pool. So what has attracted LVMH to Formula One in such a big way? Certainly in my 7 seasons of photographing the sport, I have seen a real ramping up of fashion in the paddock. If we go to Lewis Hamilton, he is the main instigator, obviously, of fashion being so prevalent. He's sponsored by Dior, as is Zhou Guanyu. The Alpine drivers are sponsored by Berluti, once again an LVMH brand. But what about Aston Martin and V-Carb sponsors Hugo Boss? Are they likely to be concerned because suddenly there's a super fashion house involved? I think they'd be concerned. They'll be certainly working hard to tie up their relationships with their teams, as will Palm Angels with Haas, Tommy Hilfiger with Mercedes, and Pepe Jeans with Red Bull. But maybe we'll see the F1 staff decked out in new uniforms provided by one of these high-end fashion houses. So who signed the deal with LVMH? Was it the FIA or Formula One management? The latter. They have the commercial rights to sell the sport and promote it. So last week, when the announcement was made public, out in the press release came these 2 pictures of Stefano Domenicali with Greg Maffei and the 2 Arnolds from LVMH. This is an amazing sponsorship and should be good for the sport. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and become a member. And for a whole lot of extra stuff, head over here and have a look. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. Here we go.